Hello, and welcome to Sun Radio. My name is Anabel, and I am your host. I am the founder of White Sun Studio, which is an online platform and space for people to come and practice yoga in its entirety. And I started this podcast really as a way to have some raw chats, real chats, yaps about the intersection where this ancient wisdom meets our modern worlds, which I think can sometimes be this kind of weird zone that people don't want to address, or, you know, we morph this practice into something that needs to be modernized and that needs to be almost taken away from its roots. And so we're going to just chat and yap about that beautiful intersection where both can coexist, because life is this wild, we're going to get really deep in the first 30 seconds. Life is this polarity. It's a duality. It's like everything is existing at once. And when we can find this dance between all of them, it's like, whoa, life is life and we be lifing. If that makes any sense. First disclaimer, I have no idea what I'm doing, which is probably not what the founder should be saying. But I mean, podcasting, technology, like, it's a miracle. Who knows if this audio is going to be connecting with this video if you're watching that. Like, who knows if this is going to work. I'm popping my own podcast cherry today. And so, yeah, we're doing it. We're just going to do it. It probably takes us like on this big maze, like zigzagging through the universe to get from A to B. But we get there. And I think something that I've always lived my life by is I'm not going to not do something because I don't know how to do it. I'm going to do it not knowing how to do it, but maybe by the end, I have more of an idea of how to do it. I feel like I'm on the Nike ad or something. Just do it. Seriously though. So I thought today we would chat about some of the misconceptions about yoga that I see in day-to-day, that I see with my clients, with my students, with my community, and kind of debunk some of them in a way that feels true to me. So another disclaimer is we live in a world where everyone can have an opinion, which is beautiful and dangerous. And in the world of Vedic wisdom and yogic teachings, there is so much vastness. Like, it is like it's literally the definition of the more you know you don't know. And so when we chat about different topics, there is so much nuance, which is beautiful. It's fun. It means you can just chat and yap for hours and hours and hours about it. But sometimes it can mean that there can be some very opposing and different views. And the beauty of that is, number one, we get to expand our perspective, our understanding. Number two, we get to show kindness and love to every perspective and understanding of it. Number three, those understandings, those ideologies, those perspectives are allowed to shift and change for ourselves day to day, moment to moment, second to second. Like, who knows? Maybe we won't even discuss the misconceptions about yoga in this podcast. Maybe I already changed my mind. But no, we'll try and stay on track. I do tend to get a bit carried away when I'm talking. I've got a very, very rajastic nature and mind, as well as being very pitta orientated. So if you're familiar, you might be able to get me vibe. But we do the practices to support that, but we also allow it to be that. I think when I first started on this journey, I thought that I had to be this super mellow and like chilled out person because I meditated every day. And I just had to be love and light to all. And then I was like, hang on a second. I am quite unhinged. I have a very sparkly, loud energy. And I've got a fucking opinion on things. And that is welcome here. I think, yeah, like, we're allowed to have it all. We're allowed to do it all. We're allowed to be it all. And I think when we try, and again, it comes back to this idea that, like, it has to be one thing and then it can't be the other. And the reality is that everything is existing on this like spectrum of possibility. Something that I spoke about in class the other day is like, let's look at something like excitement. So excitement, let's say the spectrum of excitement is like this. Here you might have excited, like just that joyous, enthusiastic, ecstasy kind of like, yeah, let's do it. And then you go to move a little bit this way and it's like a bit of like a nervous excitement. It's like, ooh, like it's a bit of like a fluttery, is that a word? Like a jittery, almost like a jittery kind of, ooh, like I'm excited. And then you keep going and you go into that like anxious, excited, like you're kind of, you're gone so far that you're like, I am a ball of anxiety and I don't want to do this now. It's gone from bring it on to like, oh my God, help. And so they're all different. And then what we do is we do the practices, we do the breathing, the understanding to bring us back to that joyous excitement. And now I can't remember where I was going with that. I think this is going to happen a lot, guys. I think it's going to happen a lot. So anyway, this is why I think I need someone here with me to keep me on track. That is coming. But today we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the misconceptions of yoga. Now, if you've been following along with me for a few years, for the last 5 years, not that we identify with anything in yoga, only a little much, but my business has been Beyond Asana. And Beyond Asana has been my passion project for the last 5 years, and it has supported some of the greatest evolutions of myself, of my understandings, of my perspectives. And so I've shared from a lens of yoga being more than the asana. And that is something that I am still very, very passionate about. But I guess this kind of evolution of my brand as now White Sun Studio and as Sun Radio, which we're on right now, is just an evolution of that. It still has the same essence, but we're kind of taking it a little bit beyond. I did want to call it Beyond, just take off the asana, but it wasn't available. So we pivoted. But I'm obsessed with the brand identity and the name and everything now, which I will definitely go into at some stage. We got plenty of time to yap. So yeah. The first thing is kind of understanding my background coming from the practice of yoga in the modern world as someone who really never identified with the practice of asana. And like I practice asana, I've taught asana in yoga studios for the last 5 years and I love it and it has a place, absolutely. Like it is such an amazing gateway for a lot of people into this practice. For me, however, I usually am someone who does things like all back the front and upside down just to like keep things interesting. My therapist once said that I always choose the harder path and I was like, damn straight. And she's like, sometimes that's not a good thing. And I was like, true. But my practice started with mantra and kriya and waking up at 4 a.m. to practice for 2.5 hours. And so then when the kind of the charm for an asana practice came in, I was like, this is what we do first. And so it was beautiful. It was like an unlearning and a relearning for me. But I guess with that foundation, I just from day one really saw the need in the modern world for for yoga to be more than the asana. So I guess number one misconception, if we need to put it into subheadings, is the misconception is that yoga is not just asana. And the modern world definitely sees this practice as this aesthetic thing on Instagram where everyone's like doing crazy wild poses, which is incredible. And there's a place for that, but it is not the be all and end all. Like asana is a path of yoga, but it is not the path. It is not the only path. And I'm just really passionate about sharing that because a lot of people can't physically do these asanas and it puts them into this like spiral because they're comparing themselves to these people on Instagram in their Lululemon. I don't know if can I like say brand names? I don't know. In their synthetic leggings that have hypermobile joints that are doing these crazy things, and they're like, oh, I can't go to a yoga class because I can't do that. And that leads me to, I guess it ties into this one, but if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible, I would be in the Bahamas with an island, my own island, with a coconut in my hand, laughing. And I can do that now if I want because I create my own reality. But like, it is just like, it pains me, but it doesn't pain me for the person. It pains me for the world that we live in, where it has gotten to that, where that is just like normal. It's like when someone says, Tantra is sex. It's like, no, it's not. It's like, there's certain aspects, there's practices that can include that, but Tantra is not sex. It is the how we move the energy through our practice. We can be doing some non-sexy things and it can still be Tantra. Anyway, that can be its whole own, I'll write that down for a whole nother episode. Episode sounds so fancy. But yeah, just this idea that we need to be flexible to do these things. And it's like, we absolutely do not need to. Like, it definitely is something that is shown in the world as it needing to be that, but it's just not. And so, yeah, bringing those two together is like, you don't need to be flexible to practice yoga. You don't even need to sit on the ground. Like, so many classes that I teach and share, and like, I'm going to make a whole thing about this, is that these practices can be done seated. Like, if you can sit, feet on the ground, spine is long, you can do so many of the kriyas, so many of the pranayama, all of the mantra. Like, there's so many layers to the practice. Like, you can sit and read a book. Like, if you grab a book, like, you don't need to have your legs behind your head to practice svadhyaya. To practice svadhyaya, which is self-study, which is understanding these ancient texts, which is understanding how our minds work and how they interpret things. Like, we don't need to be doing that. Like, you know, no, not necessary. Like, if you want to be my guest, like, please, but it's not necessary. So that kind of ties into each other, which, you know, if you've been, as I said, if you've been around here for a little while, this is not new information. This is a reminder, because I need to be reminded of it too. You know, when I'm like, oh, I haven't practiced yoga today. I'm like, what do you mean? You literally got up and meditated and did your breath, and like, yeah, you're feeling a little tight, but that's actually got nothing to do with yoga needing to do anything. Like, that's just an added benefit. Anyway. So the next one that I wanted to talk about is yogic teachings, Yogvendantic teachings are not a written text, right? Like, we now have lots of written texts on these things, but all of this stuff, this vastness that we will never really fully comprehend or understand, is first and foremost a oral tradition. So that means that this entire tradition, everything that encompasses all of the yoga, needed first to come from word to word, like mouth to mouth. Not CPR. Guys, this is hilarious. It is an oral, let's try that again. It is an oral tradition because the way that this tradition has been passed down is from teacher to student through words spoken. It is a spoken tradition. And for the books and the ancient texts and everything that are like 5,000 plus years old, for those to be written back then, needed a fully functioning and thriving world of these teachings to be happening before it was written down. Like, yeah, fair enough, now we have like technology and AI where like someone will say you should put papaya skin on your face every day, and then the next day there will be like a 6-week course written about it and like 5 books, because AI can just do that. But 5,000 years ago, I mean, I can't say that I was there, but from my understanding, things weren't moving as fast as they were now in terms of like the physical copies of things. So for things to be written down, which is like the Vedas and these texts that we study now, which we kind of see as the origins of yoga and the tradition of yoga, it had to be coming from a fully functioning and thriving world of these teachings before it was written down. So that kind of just goes to show the vastness of it, which vastness is like my favorite word at the moment, because it's like, it's so spacious, it's so infinite. And it goes to show that these teachings and these practices are so old. And also a note on that is that even though there's authors in air quotation marks, I think that's what it's called if you're not watching the video, even though there's authors of some of these texts, something like the Upanishads, right? Like there's no author in a sense, because the sages and the rishis and these beings that came from these caves in the Himalayan mountains, they didn't feel any need to have any kind of ownership over these teachings, because number one, we come to understand that when there's ownership, there's going to be a bit of hate. There's no one in this world that doesn't have like an enemy or something, I'm sorry to tell you. And when we attach like an identity, like a being's identity to something, they understood even back then that would then create this negative correlation to something. And they didn't want that for these teachings because they're so pure. Number two, how can you really take ownership over something when it is channeled? And this might be like quite a woo-woo topic for some people, but I feel like most of the people that are here get it. That's why you're here. But all of these teachings are completely and utterly channeled. And the reason that there is this richness in this history and in these understandings is because, like, let's say when the British went to take over India, for example, all of these rishis and these sages went into the mountains, into the Himalayan mountains, to preserve this knowledge. Not that they had it like, oh my God, they've got it like on their Kindle and they need to like keep their Kindle safe for all these years while this war going on. No, they had to keep their beings pure and become the conduit for these teachings to be channeled through them, for this consciousness to be coming through them, and for them to be able to then share that. And so how can someone take ownership over that when it is something that is coming through them? And I think that is something which, again, topic for another time, but like that ability to sharpen the intellect enough so that we can channel through us is something that is available to all of us, which is something that can be, I guess, trained to a degree. It's more like a remembrance. It's like a remembrance of our abilities to do that, which are often kind of bunkered down. What's the right word? Like they're kind of pushed and suppressed and morphed and hidden from ourselves through all the things that happen out there. And so, yeah, they didn't feel any need to take ownership over that, which I think is pretty cool. And it's definitely a lesson in understanding that people on such a high consciousness state don't feel the need to take ownership over things, which is funny because it's like literally start this podcast with, hi, my name's Anabel. I'm the founder of White Sun Studio, like ownership, but it's different these days. We've got things like intellectual property that we have to be worried about. But essentially that is something that is a very, let me say it again, vast topic. But I hope that kind of starts to, introduce you. If this is new, it introduces you to this understanding or misconceptions that, someone goes, oh, but like I read it in that book and so it's correct. And that was when that book was written, was when it came into existence. No, like that book is going to be one person's interpretation of something that is channeled from the divine through multiple people to then that person. Side note, things like Sanskrit, right, which is the language that these texts have been written in, which is a language that was only reserved for the elite of the elite for a very long time, which means it was not accessible to the everyday person like the teachings are now, which is a good thing that has shifted and changed. There's still many issues relating to that, Brahmanism, that happen in the background that are coming to light a lot more now. But when we look at something like Sanskrit, one Sanskrit word can have like 40, 50, 60 interpretations to the English language. So when we read an interpretation of a text, not only are we reading the interpretation of one person's consciousness state to that text, we're then interpreting it through our own lens. So we're going through our lens, our like own conditioning, patterning, trauma, understanding consciousness state. We're then understanding someone else's perspective, which is their own conditioning, DNA, trauma, consciousness state, to then understand like one out of like 40, 50, 60 interpretations of a single word that then interprets a sentence that then interprets an entire text. So I guess this just brings me back to what I started the podcast with, which is that there are so many interpretations, understandings, perspectives, ideologies, and ways to think about this stuff, which essentially is the most exciting, scary, endearing, curious thinking way of looking at things. And so I'm going to leave you with that for a little contemplation. But I guess it's just an invitation to understand and start to feel into what is it like for you? What is the felt experience for you to open yourself up to a completely different way of thinking, being, and understanding that maybe feels completely and utterly unknown to you? Like, what does that feel like for you? And what could that lead to for you? So we can get very, very stuck in our ways. The older we get as well, we're like, I know the world. It's like, no, we don't, because the world is literally different every single day. But just to start to like debunk for ourselves what something means and what it means to us. And like the beauty is that there's no wrong way of looking at it. There's no right way of looking at it. It is just a way of looking at it. And as I said at the start, like that can shift and change and ebb and flow and contract and expand, and it can do all of the dances. And so when we start to look at things through this lens of like dancing with it all, I don't know why just then, but like, this is the rhythm of the night. I don't know why that came into my head just then, but just thought I'd share that. When we do start to dance with it all, it really opens up our consciousness state to understanding things from a different perspective. But it also gives us the opportunity to understand that, like how I started, wow, full circle, spectrum. There are so many things happening on this one spectrum, but like so many possibilities. And so when we start to tune into like, okay, might be here on this kind of like layout of things, but like what would it be like to go up here a little bit more, and like what would it be like to be over here? And like we just kind of like have a little dance, and we know that that's our center, like we understand that that's our kind of base, but we kind of like dance like a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Like it's kind of like when you go to your favorite restaurant and like usually you get like whatever it is, like your same meal every single time, and you're like, I think I'm gonna add some pineapple to my pizza today. And you're like, like that could be fun. And then like the Italian sitting next to you is like, no, you're not allowed to do that. But then you do it anyway and it was lit and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do this every time. So just play with it, have a dance with it and let me know how you go. So welcome to Sun Radio. If this is made live, it's made live. We will be posting on here, who knows how regularly. Not very promising, is it? No, but we're just keeping it real. We're not going to have some fancy intro and outro because quite frankly, we don't know how to do that and we don't have Jay Shetty's producer on the team yet. It is just singular moi. But maybe if we get a producer, we might have an intro and an outro. But for the moment, it is just me in my lounge room coming to you with all the trials and tribulations of going online, but really just here to share and to just be in Sangha, in community, in raw chats, in deep chats, in lighthearted chats, in all of the chit-chatting yaps. And I'm going to leave you with that. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om, Tat Sat. Om Namo Narayani. Jai Guru Dev. I think that was pretty good, if I do say so myself.